Kingmaker Podcast. Hear ye, hear ye.
Make way for the
Kingmaker Podcast.
All right, well, let's get going first. Alejandro, how's your day going?
Good, good. I'm excited to get this started. We've been working on this for like the past 1 or 2 weeks, so it's good to launch.
So, like in crypto terms, that's like 10 years or so working on this for 2 weeks. So, perfect. I'm Keith with the Alpha, and also I wrote a little intro for our guest today. So, if you'll humor me, let me hit y'all with this. So, hear ye, we have the privilege, nay, the honor of welcoming, sir. We are gonna make it, Alexander, the preeminent Vodium bribologist, to the very first Kingmaker podcast, Bribecast. Welcome, sir. How's that for your intro,
Thank-
Alex?
It's amazing. Thank you so much for having me. I think as I shared in a tweet leading up to this, I definitely think of myself more as just a guy with a spreadsheet than preeminent bribologist, but I will take the honor, and I am very excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, in noticed in your bio in real life, you talk about being a producer. So I was, as we were communicating, I was trying to let you know now you're the talent. You just got to show up with the amazing spreadsheet. So again, welcome.
Yeah, that it is nice. It is nice for once not to be the organizer and facilitator or something. Happy just to be along for the ride.
Awesome. Well, without further ado, Alejandro, you want to kick it off? Let's ask Alex a couple questions. Let's get the show on the road for everybody.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. So first things first, I don't know if you've been on Twitter Spaces before, but I think it would be good for you to give a little introduction to yourself, a little bit of your background to see, or to let everyone know a little bit more about you before we get the show started.
Yeah, that sounds great. This is my definitely my first Twitter space as a participant, but I of course listened into many. So I guess a little bit of background about me. As we shared at the top, in my real life, I'm a producer at a kind of boutique marketing, creative, strategic agency. Prior to that, I spent time working in the political world. I spent some time working at Apple. But within the last few years here, I probably, like many of you, have been going deeper and deeper down the Web3 rabbit hole. So originally, it just started with me in the pandemic building a gaming PC because I had never done that before and I was bored. And then I had a friend of mine tell me that I should be doing some mining with that machine. So I did that, and I started to watch every week as I earned more and more money passively. And then I had a good friend of mine named Jason Hitchcock, who some of y'all might know in the Web3 space, sort of sit me down and give me the talk, right? That I should sell everything, liquidate every asset, move it all into crypto, go all in, and eventually become rich. So I started going deep into the Web3 space. The community that Jason runs, a sort of private community, I think was my onboarding, and he was also my onboarding into Convex and Vodium and the Curve Wars and all that fun stuff. So really is the whole reason I'm here today.
Well, good transition. Awesome to learn more about you. Sounds like you have an amazing background in technology. But take us a step back. We're going to talk bribes here in a second. There's some crazy news that's happened. We have 4 pool now, maybe 2 pool, all kinds of craziness that should increase our bribes. But first, take a step back. Where are the bribes coming from? Talk a little bit about Curve, if you would. And and then let's step through and talk about Vodium and take it from there.
Mm-hmm.
But take it away.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think I am I don't consider myself an expert, but I'll try to give my best smooth brain explanation of these things. But the Curve, obviously being one of the preeminent AMMs, starting in the Ethereum ecosystem and certainly branched out. Curve's original mission, right, was very much focused on stablecoin swaps, and how important those are to the overall sort of token ecosystem. Being able to do those at that sort of low fee, low slippage basis was a pretty revolutionary mechanic, as were some of the underlying mechanisms on which Curve was built. Uh, Eventually, Convex came along, right? And they said, well, if we can lock up a majority of Curve and sort of build this second layer, we can then direct Curve emissions to the pools that we and our voters most want them to go to, and we can sort of introduce this layer of bribing potentially. And then Vodium, decided to come in and make that sort of bribe layer super easy and simple for folks. And then, we've gone even deeper to something like the Union, which makes it all sort of turnkey and automated. So it's this beautiful little passive income ecosystem that has sprung up around both Curve and Convex.
Really good, nice explanation. I definitely appreciate it. So I guess one thing I would like to bring up now, just in case anyone's new to bribing and everything. You were talking about Vodium. How would you recommend people to set up their bribes to get the most? Since you analyze in your spreadsheet and everything. How would you recommend people to organize their setup to get the most money and to save money and gas?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think when I was first getting started, starting to make my first convex bribes, it was or getting involved in convex, right, and trying to solicit bribes. It was kind of in that big explosive first round where the cap was lifted on bribes, the total number in dollar terms exploded, and a ton of interest, right, started to go towards convex, and the price went way up, and all that sort of stuff. And I am no whale, so the advice I was given was like, if you want to get into the sort of convex world, you're gonna want to do it with a relatively substantial amount of cash, because you are going to be paying for gas fees every step of the way, right? From getting your money into Ethereum to converting it over to Convex, to locking that Convex, to delegating, to claiming your rewards, and all that sort of fun stuff. So I think the first piece to know is that if you are not already sort of in this game and you are thinking about it, is you definitely need to do the overall math to be sure that you're able to enter with enough capital that you're not going to basically whittle it away every time that you sort of make a transaction, whether that's to sort of get into Convex, get into Vodium, collect your bribes and things like that. So I think that's the first piece to know. I do think that there is a way, and I think some people still do this, right, where they delegate to Vodium, but they are still watching the bribes and how the votes are distributed across the various pools in a very detailed way, and they are choosing to vote for a single pool. This is actually something that I did when I sort of first got involved here, because I didn't have a huge amount of money in Convex and in Vodium. So it was actually more advantageous for me to say vote for a pool bribed in Convex, because I was trying to basically accrue as much Convex as I could and compound it, rather than just letting Vodium sort of vote for me and me getting like a dozen different coins, right? Because if you imagine paying the gas costs to swap or compound each of those coins, that was going to be very expensive. So I think like one thing to know if you are jumping into this sort of world, and we can get into union in a second, which makes some of this a bit easier, is you should probably, if you have a smaller amount of money, maybe choose the pools you vote for, even if the sort of like dollar per vote lock convex is a little bit lower. It might actually work out better for you to just like accrue Luna if that's one of your goals, or accrue convex or something like that. Of course, the big innovation of Union was that you don't have to worry about any of that. Votium's going to distribute, the overall votes of everybody who's joined Votium, so that you get the optimal amount of sort of dollars per vote locks convex out of it. But then they are going to automatically compound that into sort of a single asset. And that asset will sort of sit there continuing to compound interest. And I think it's usually like a 40%, until it's a large enough size that it makes sense for me to like take that out, swap it to convex, and then compound it back in. So for me personally, I might not actually now claim my rewards or do anything with my rewards every cycle. It might be like every 2 or 3 cycles before I sort of actually do something with that. But thanks to Union, it's still accruing value, as I sort of let it sit for a little bit. Basically cuts down on your costs, right?
Right, and it also maybe eliminates some danger of voting for the wrong pool where there are no bribes. I know
Yep.
looking in the Discord, you see that sort of every time. So there is a lot of advantages to voting with the union or delegating to the union. And also beyond that, I think the ultimate play would be the single vote, in which you vote for pumps overnight before you collect. Um,
Yep.
Actually, that happened. I voted for Lido or the staked ETH one time. It happened, so got lucky
Yep.
one time. But all right, so we'll transition now. The wonderful spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm.
Take us into your mind. When did you set up the spreadsheet? When did you start tracking? Was it when Llama Air Force launched? Or give us a little bit more insight on what piqued your interest here and why you started doing that.
Yeah, of course. So as I mentioned earlier, I definitely think I jumped into convex. I don't remember when my first, I guess, buy was, December, January, somewhere in there. But it was kind of like peak convex and curve wars hype. And I believe the price of convex, was around those all-time highs, like 40, 50, $50. And everybody was just euphoric after that round 8 sort of, I think it was like point 0.8, 80 cents per vote lock convex. It was around, almost $20 million. And so everybody was feeling really good. And then, as everybody knows, the whole sort of crypto market started really getting knocked around. And so I think a lot of people who bought into convex, bought into the curve wars narrative around that point, basically felt really screwed in those next few rounds, where it seemed like on kind of a, I guess, on paper basis, it wasn't going up anymore to like $1 per vote lock convex. It was actually starting to drop. And I'm going to see if I can pull up the actual numbers here. But I just started to see a lot of like, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. I don't use that as like any of it being sinister or being born of ill intent. Just more that people were like a little scared and disappointed that, they had maybe bought a giant bag of this stuff, locked it for a very long time, and it wasn't necessarily meeting their expectations. So what I wanted to do was just personally, because I had bought a whole bunch of this and was planning on buying more, was just to understand what was actually going on. Did I did I make a mistake? Did I buy, something that wasn't what I thought it was, or it wouldn't be what I thought it was? Wasn't going to sort of generate that passive income in the way that I expected. And so I just sort of fired up a spreadsheet. I pulled as much data as I could from the Llama Air Force website in terms of here is every briber, here is the pools, here's what's coming in each round, here's what we expect to come in. And I think my sort of big breakthrough was just, we need to look at this with some sort of control for market volatility, right? Because every bribe that comes in is in some sort of token. It is bribes in Convex, it is bribes in Luna, it is, any of these individual tokens. Those tokens, the value of them are moving with the market. So if you're only looking at bribes in terms of dollars per vote lock convex, that if the entire market loses 25% of its value, you could have basically bribes going up, right? They're bribing more tokens. More bribers are coming in, like things are increasing when in terms of a per dollar basis, it looks like things are going down. And so what I used as just sort of a good control for overall market volatility was ETH, right? So if I look at each individual briber, if I look at the results of each round, are the folks who have sort of said, this is a sham, it's a scam, it's all going to zero, are they right? Like, are bribes actually just collapsing? Is this whole thing a house of cards, or is there something else going on? And what the sort of numbers showed me in the spreadsheet is that certainly round 8 was kind of like a big blowout round in dollar terms, and round 9 felt like too many, like a drop off. But in terms of ETH, they were virtually the same. No real major change in value. We had a big round in round 10 in terms of ETH, and sort of since then it's continued to sort of tick up. So that's where I got to with my spreadsheet, right? If we're going to sort of gauge the overall health of Convex, of bribes and things like that, we need to control. Denominating in ETH is a great way to sort of control for that volatility, to see if things are actually healthy and growing like we expected them to be, or if there is actually a fundamental sort of problem or shift in the dynamics. So that's how I got to my spreadsheet.
I definitely like the point that you made, because if anyone's active on crypto Twitter, or especially the Discord, like every 2 weeks or so, there's always the FUD and the fear of about bribes, and every new news that comes out, everyone's always asking, how is this gonna affect my income? How's this gonna affect? And there's like a little panic, like every 2 weeks, because as everyone knows, every day something's happening in crypto. It's really hard to keep up. So I definitely like that the point that you made, that instead of focusing on the USD terms, everyone as a whole should focus on just ETH, since we're crypto native anyways. Is a lot easier to calculate where we are, and like how good it is, like the market and like our income going to be at this moment.
Yeah, because like just as an example, I think it was maybe just a few rounds ago, maybe it was like round 13, where it looked like we were going to have kind of a really, really great round in terms of, bribes per US dollar, and in terms of dollars per vote lock convex. And I posted, on Twitter, I think my update on the bribes that were in the door, so sort of where I thought it was going to net out. And I think the market took like a 10% hit like overnight. It was a kind of brutal one. And in dollar terms, it looked like, this stuff had just fallen off a cliff, because as soon as folks deposit their bribes, they're not updating it. They're not adding more if 10% gets pulled off of their token price. So everybody was asking me, what the hell happened, right? I thought this was going to be such a great, round. I said, well, nothing fundamentally changed about the quantity of tokens that you will receive as bribes. It's just a matter of due to macro, due to anything else that's going on, the value of the bribe tokens dropped. But that also means that, like, to a point one of you made earlier, wait another 24 hours. If one of those tokens doubles, then the bribes look amazing if you haven't sort of swapped them out for something else. So, I think if you are in this, like, if your sort of mission is like you are going to live off of your convex bribes each week, if that is functionally your salary, then yeah, like the fluctuations in dollar value is something that's going to matter to you. If you are using this more to accrue tokens, to accrue value, to compound, like the convex you're earning right now, right, could double in value. It could get cut in half in value. But we need to look at how much convex are you actually earning, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I guess let's get to the juicy stuff. So what's the bribes going to be in ETH and USD this round? What are you speculating? I'm not a bribeologist like you are, but this morning I was doing a little math and I was seeing, hey, if the same amount of Frax bribes come in, it'd be like what, 14, $15 million with just because the increase in value there of the FXS token. So
Yes.
yeah, fill us in. What are we gonna get?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, as I've sort of watched bribes come in for a little while now, I mean, one thing I've definitely noticed is if there is a major shift in token value, between rounds, it's not necessarily a given that a briber will come in with the same level of tokens. I think we saw this like even last week with Luna, where they were bribing in UST, right? And they came in certainly with a 10% increase in dollar terms, but it wasn't like, I can't remember how much Luna had gone up over that period. It wasn't comparable to if they had just like bribed the same quantity. So for my assumptions this week, I'm assuming, just to be conservative, that like Frax and Luna, the sort of, let's just say the dollar value of the bribes remain consistent. So they maybe bribe fewer tokens, but roughly the same amount. Even with that, I think we would see like about an 18% increase over the previous week in dollar terms. So the rough projection I have right now for total bribes is about 19 million. I also think, though, of course, given the big news this week around both Frax and Luna, maybe there's some potential that something crazy will happen, up or down in terms of their bribes. But yeah, conservatively, I'm saying about 19 million, which would be a huge round in dollar terms. But the other consideration too is that ETH has been overperforming. So if you are sort of denominating in ETH, it might be kind of a flat round. It might be down slightly. But on the other hand, to your point, if Frax and Luna were to come in with a similar sort of bribes in terms of the total number of tokens, this could be a kind of melt your face kind of round. And at least with Convex, who's also seeing a huge jump in price, they did not change their token quantities significantly. So the overall like dollar value of the Convex bribes across the three pools that they bribe against, in terms of dollar values, those were massive increases. So if Frax and Luna follows that playbook, this could be a huge one. It could be a record breaker. Right now, I think it's going to be the second best round yet. That's my prediction, anyways.
No, I think that's a really good prediction. And you definitely made a point, like with the Luna example, that just because they token moons doesn't mean that they have to pay you in their own governance token. 2 points that I was hoping to ask you. I guess I'll start with this one before I go to the next part. What are your thoughts on more protocols just paying in stable coins? like let's say Frax just instead of FXS, like with Frax, Luna with UST. Let's say an SNX comes in and they pay with SUSD. What are your thoughts on that? How does that make you feel if we start gravitating towards a more stablecoin oriented bribes instead of governance tokens in the future?
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly no problem for me. I I don't mind what they sort of bribe in, especially knowing that the union's going to do the heavy lifting of sort of combining that all into a single asset for me. But I think generally, protocols are going to bribe in their native tokens, or what they have easiest access to, which will usually be their native tokens. Uh, or what they have sitting in their treasury. I do think that means, right, that for some of these large stablecoin protocols, it's going to be about what makes the most sense for them any given week. So, maybe we do see some weeks where the like Lunar Frax teams, by virtue of what they're looking at internally, it's just easier for them to bribe in their stables. And some weeks it's going to be easier for them to sort of bribe in their native tokens. But I think at the end of the day, for those of us sort of accruing, it probably won't make that big of a difference. We just want them to bribe as much as they possibly can, right?
No, yeah, of course. Like obviously, we're all here to make money, right? Um, of course, fundamentals too. I would hope, but actually, talk about stablecoins. So I guess more we're gonna go to more hypothesis, future oriented. So we all heard the news about Forpool, and Forpool, what they're planning to do. Um, I don't know if I need to explain, but basically, Luna, well, Doquan, or however you pronounce his name, my bad, and Sam over at Frax basically kind of like declare war on Dai. And as we all know, Dai hasn't bribed us or anything to help with their liquidity and their peg. They just kind of got like a free ride. So that's new news, and that's gonna affect the bribes from now on. Not only that, there's I don't know if you guys saw over in L2s in Optimism, for example, SNX are saying they're gonna start bribing. They're planning to start bribing from now on to help bring the liquidity to SUSD, and I think that's gonna be more frequent from now on. We're gonna see over time. I feel like we're gonna see more bribes from L2 environments, and since Curve is cross chain and everything, and as they release more V2 factory pools over in other chains and L2s, I think that's gonna be more common. I would like to I would like to get you to talk further about that. What do you think is gonna happen as they unlock things and they lower the barriers of entry?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'll start by I want to give a plug. So there's a very nice gentleman I've sort of met in crypto circles, at Average Joe Crypto. You can probably find him on Twitter. He wrote an amazing piece, sort of analyzing this, and one way that he described it that really sort of spoke to me is that this has sort of been like less that maybe the curve wars up until this point. It's been like the curve, like Cold Wars. Folks have been sort of slowly assembling control. Battle lines have been drawn. Certainly, things have been sort of growing at an incremental pace. But I think what we've just seen, this week, and basically Frax and Luna declaring war on Maker, and saying that they are going to use Curve as the medium, to make their stable coins, the most liquid and most stable, is going to cause some real chaos, because it seems as if it's going to force like a Maker, who is somebody who hasn't really played the curve wars before, and perhaps also light a fire under Abracadabra and Mim and others who have been a part of it, but it hasn't been their focus for a little while here. They're going to have to get in here and play, and that might mean bribes. That might mean them acquiring convex. And this is just a whole layer that, I think everybody had already been thinking about the opportunity of the Curve V2 pools, right? And these, non-stable pairs and of players outside of just the Ethereum ecosystem coming in and beginning to bribe. And I think that is still going to happen, right? And we're seeing new pools. We just saw 2 new bribers this week jump in. So I think it's happening slowly. But this is a whole nother level now where we have some protocols very much on the attack. And unless there is some sort of plan B, that we don't know, it feels like they're going to have to play some defense on Curve to protect their existing pools with DAI and everything else in there. And so I think that's just a super bullish thing for anybody who holds convex, because I think it's going to mean more people are buying and it's going to drive price up. And it's great for anybody who's vote locking that convex and pulling in bribes, because I think they're going to juice, obviously, this 4 pool. And I think in doing so, they're going to force other people to juice their pools to keep them, keep the liquidity in them.
What do you make of the tweet from Do Kwon when he was saying, hey, they have 50% control, and Mr. Crypto Condom, shout out to him and his support, but he had to correct his math. Is math hard for Do Kwon, or is he looking at the wrong thing? What's your take on that? Because he's got a long ways to go to get the control he's thinking he has.
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe he was looking at the end game of his plan, and maybe not where he is today. I think they would love to have that, and I don't think it's unreasonable that they could sort of continue their warpath and accrue more. But of course, he is also just a world-class shit poster. I see my friend here, Ace, is on. He's sort of coined him the crypto Bezos. So, I don't know exactly what happened there, but I think he's just stirring the shit, as he does. He's out to win and to win at all costs. And, maybe he'll be a little flippant on the way. I think we've certainly seen that, like with the bets he's been making and everything else. So I more laughed that one off than worried,
No, yeah, I definitely like the nickname. I think they said your friend gave him. I can definitely see that, and and I find it kind of funny. Um, I generally agree with what you said, and I don't think people should worry too much about what he says. I think the numbers will speak for themselves, and obviously actions speak louder than words. So it's just one of those things that we're just gonna have to wait in the future to see if he can back himself up to what he says. One thing I was hoping to hop into the next subject. As you know, FXX got under CVX. Got implemented, and soon they're going to be releasing hopefully the Frax gauges and the Frax LPs and convex. How do you think with how do you think bribes are going to be now with Frax, and what do you think is going to happen in terms of bribes?
I mean, I don't have any super deep analysis here, but other than I think it's going to be bullish for them. I mean, certainly with their sort of price exploding, and I totally buy the analysis that this is a very bullish sign for them, and there's probably a lot more sort of growth that they are due for. It just gives them, more freedom to bribe in larger and larger amounts. And I also think, of course, it seems like if they are all successful, you're looking at that stable coin being able to maybe chip away at the market share of some of the other folks that have been more traditionally the leaders. But I also think it's just hella bullish for convex, because I see a lot of people sometimes struggle with this idea of, why is convex priced at such a premium to curve, right? Why aren't more people just buying curve if it's fundamentally about what convex controls in terms of curve? But convex isn't just curve anymore, right? Convex is owning a huge portion of fracs. They are diversifying. They might even go elsewhere to sort of lock up that kind of control. So what we should be pricing into convex is not only the control of curve, but the control of sort of fracs and their broader sort of ambitions, as well as the bribe layer. And then it sort of absolutely makes sense why they would trade at such a premium.
Again, great perspective. Appreciate that. You are sounding like the preeminent bribologist, just so you know. So my one specific follow-up would be jumping back to previous topic on the bribe amount. What exactly am I going to get in USD with that 18% increase projection you're saying? And knowing there's been some dilution recently with lots of protocols buying and locking, what are we looking at exactly in USD terms of amount per vote locked CBX for this round?
Yeah, that is
No
always a
pressure.
tricky.
No
Yeah,
pressure. Plus or minus 1%. Give it to us straight.
yeah. I mean, I think I think we're likely going to see something over 50 cents. The tricky part about this, right, and the reason I always am reluctant to make a prediction on the dollar per vote lock convex each week is because it has to do with uh, the people who are voting and voting for each pool, and that number changes, right? It's not just about the vote lock convex. It's about sort of the distribution of votes per pool and how Vodium distributes them to optimize it and sort of things like that. I mean, I think in the next few weeks, it's certainly possible that we see something, whether it's this round or soon, that is at least equal to or exceeding the sort of record amount, right, which was around that 0.8. I think if things come in, if Luna and Fraps come in big this week, right, it could actually sort of break that record. But I know, like in the Convex forum too, there's like always this question of is this going to be the week Tetranode doesn't take a OTC bribe, right, and just jumps in and dilutes everybody in the Vodium pool and stuff like that, and that just makes it so hard to make a prediction with too much certainty until we're really close, right? Because as soon as we start to get really close, then you can sort of look at what's still outstanding. You can assume most people have committed their votes. You can assume Vodium's properly sort of distributed their votes across the different pools and things like that.
No, yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from, because it seems like it's being more and more of a common trend that the big players just wait until the last 24 hours, the last few hours before bribes are done to actually submit their bribes, which is starting to get a few people worried in Discord. I've been seeing these last few rounds.
Yep, exactly. And I think if folks aren't already hanging out in the Vodium Discord and in the Convex Discord, it's a great thing to do, because you will also see like people talking about leading indicators there, right? When a lot of these protocols are thinking about what their bribes are going to be any given cycle, they have maybe had to run things through Snapshot. They've maybe been talking about them within their own Discords, and those sorts of things are surfaced. So it's rare, I feel like, that we're ever like really surprised, by a move, like a huge bribe out of nowhere that we had no idea was coming, or a major player massively cutting down or not bribing in a particular round, like, because so many of these are DAOs or organizations that are working very transparently. You can usually get a pretty good idea as you get late in there, like it's gonna come. If it wasn't gonna come, we probably would know about it. Although, of course, now that I'm saying this, this is probably the week that Luna just says we're going to save it all so we can bribe our new pool next week, and I get the Twitter mob chasing me.
So yeah, so with the Twitter mob chasing you, where can they find your information? Give us a little bit more on that one. How can people follow along as you keep your sheets updated?
Yeah, so generally speaking, I've tried to do a thread each round at Wagami Alex, my Twitter account. I've been on vacation this week, so I didn't do my sort of full thread, and I'm honestly a little hungover today, so I'm glad it was a big wedding last night. I'm glad I'm as lucid as I am, but I do hope to keep that up. Where I will do, around the time the round starts, a bit of a recap of what we saw last round, a bit of a preview of what we're seeing this round, and then as bribes come in, it can be difficult to sort of understand like that per ETH basis or the overall trends on the Llama Air Force dashboard alone. I do recommend you go there to keep track, but that's where I try to sort of post my spreadsheet updates as I see anything big or interesting. But I've also, in recent weeks, gotten super involved in the Solidity Wars over on Phantom, and I'm now a part of VE DAO, which is doing some really cool stuff in that space. So I haven't been able to put as much care into those threads as I once did, but it is something I hope to continue to keep up with. And I mean, my money's locked up for those 16 weeks, so I don't think I'm going to completely lose the will to watch all of this very closely. But I mentioned definitely Average Joe Crypto is another great one to follow. Ace to Book, who's on this call, you can see his little Doge emoji. He's another one who watches all of this stuff closely and has some really smart analysis. And of course, there are a lot of other people who I think are even smarter than me covering all of this on a regular basis.
No, yeah, I completely understand. We will see about bringing more people on in the future to future Bribecast. But one thing that we were saying earlier, so people hear the listening and anyone listening afterwards, is that Alex had a point that it would be really hard to be surprised about any like sudden moves. Like if you're active in any DAO communities, everything does have to go through DAO regardless. Um, so I would really recommend anyone to join the Convex Discord, Vodium. There's usually people parts of multiple communities there, and they would probably post any snapshots or government votes or proposals there of any upcoming DAOs joining the bribe rounds because they had to be transparent, go through governance.
Yep. And it's honestly the best place as well to follow along with sort of the deposit notifications, right? Because every time a new bribe comes in and is deposited, these discords sort of have automated bots to surface that. And so that's what I'm always watching. And that's the information that I'm sort of using to feed my spreadsheet. So for instance, today, we talked about, well, if everything sort of remains consistent, I think it's going to be a great round. We're not maybe going to, break the records on anything, but Lido came in with a huge bribe that, as of right now, represents about a 43% increase in dollar terms over the previous round, and about a 25% increase in the tokens bribed. So, I mean, if we were to see more bribes like that roll in, you can follow along on those discords, then, this could be the round that we sort of blow the doors off things. But they're great communities. People are so helpful in there. And I mean, shit, this stuff is just fun, right? It's fun to watch your bribes roll in every week, and to do it with a community of folks.
Here. That is definitely, I agree wholeheartedly. So a little bit of housekeeping. Our our goal, Alejandro and myself, our goal is to have Alex with us as long as you want on our Bribecast, as well as other maybe those folks are not preeminent bribologists, but maybe they're the foremost bribologists. We'll have others on the show with us. And we'll do this every 2 weeks, somewhere around the time when the bribes are going to be closing out. So want to keep the conversations going, want to keep keeping up to date on all the changes, because again, so much changes every 2 weeks. But we want to take an attempt to open it up to other folks to ask us questions or ask Alex questions. So is there anybody who would like to be brought up on stage? And we'll give that a shot. Have you come up on stage and either talk or ask a question.
Someone wants to ask me when, right? On the VDAO front, so someone's going to jump in here and say when. I just know it.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. I'm looking for hands raised from anybody. There we go. Oops. Man, requests. Here we go. Billy, you can now speak.
Thanks for the kind of bi-weekly podcast. I really enjoy it. What are you guys' thoughts around Convex going multi-chain, right? Because we're obviously seeing the Terra and Fraxer. You're trying to do 4-pool, across all the ecosystems that the Curve is deployed to. And I know there was like a multi-chain contract deployment, at least maybe to testnet, or at least there were rumors of it, maybe a month or so back. Are you still expecting kind of bribes and Convex to go multi-chain? And that's kind of question one. And then question two is, how do you guys think about Curve's long-term moat with kind of a Stargate or Layer 0 hovering up a bunch of stable coins, and whether or not they'll become the primary place for stablecoin liquidity, and maybe that results in Convex, acquiring VE, STG in the future. So those are kind of the two questions that I had.
Great questions. Alejandro, you want to field those? And Alex?
I guess I'll take a shot first, and then Alex, if you're interested, you can say anything else after I'm done. So yeah, my opinion is that CVX, my bad. I'm pretty sure we're gonna go cross chain and multi chain, or at the very least, we're gonna start getting a lot more participants. I know one thing is a common trend is the V2 factory pools have been limited, and they had to be approved by the Curve dev team in order to upload, not upload. You get what I mean, to be put on chain. So I think as soon as they let down the guardrails, you're going to see a lot more activity and a lot more people moving to Curve, and which in turn is going to increase liquidity. So I think long term is bullish in that sense. Well, I guess for us, when we receive DAOs, bribes, my bad, from different DAOs. And sorry, one of your questions was the long term expenses of Curve, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the competition with Stargate, given that they're acquiring a lot of stablecoin liquidity, and they could become, if they're cross-chain and they go cross-chain before Curve integrates everything on the back end, maybe they end up becoming the liquidity sink for stablecoins in the future rather than Curve currently. Because all the stablecoins are primarily liquidities on Ethereum versus kind of cross-chain.
Yeah.
Personally,
What do you think, Alejandro?
Personally, I don't think Curve is ever going to lose its place in the ecosystem. Like, I know Layer 0 just wanted smoothing things out and make everyone's life easier to go cross-chain and multi-chain and everything. But I don't. Of course, this is my opinion. I'm not in with the devs. I didn't know any alpha, sadly. But I personally don't think Curve is going to lose their place in the ecosystem. I think Curve is going to have its place always. And maybe I'm biased, right? And because I'm deep in the community and the ecosystem, but I think they're gonna have their place, and I have a hard time seeing anyone's gonna outcompete them or take their place for years to come. If I'm being honest, in my opinion, the more people are gonna use it, and the fees are just gonna go up over time as they release more features and they lower the guardrails and all the things.
Yeah, and they have the moat of all the emissions, right? Like that a Stargate or a Layer Zero doesn't currently have. And so like obviously the higher the market cap goes, the more those emissions are valuable. And so it sounds like on the multi-chain side, like there's not like immediate plans for Convex to go multi-chain. It's kind of, obviously I think probably the Frax bribes are the most important part. And are you guys hearing any thing around acquiring other, vote escrowed tokens, or is it primarily going to be Frax and Convex, or Frax and Curve on ETH Layer 1 for the foreseeable future?
I don't personally have any alpha on that, but I stay tuned in the Discord, lurk and read. So I don't know if anybody else has any deeper insights into that, Alejandro or Alex. But I'm staying glued to the Discord to see what comes next, because something has to come next down the road to keep growing.
Like I said, I don't have any alpha, but from my opinion, I think of course, first we have to wait until the devs release all the features for Frax and everything. As you guys probably seen, the Frax team and Convex team have been taking a while to release everything, like the FPI airdrop, and the devs haven't yet done the Frax gauges and the max boost for the Frax ecosystem. So I think we're probably gonna have to wait a while for them to fully release that and have it live before they even talk about another acquisition, I guess is a word you can call it. But I definitely see we're probably gonna get multiple more tokens under Convex's belt. The way I see it, it's probably every couple of months or every year or whatever you want to call it. Um, just more and more tokens are going to go under Convex. I have a hard time seeing that they're just going to accept Curve and Frax and just call it a day.
So go ahead, Alex. I see you unmuted.
I was just going to say I agree with that. I get the sense that they are watching, right, and sort of keeping an eye on things, and if they see another opportunity like they did with Frax, that they would be willing to pounce.
So
Awesome.
put in
Thanks,
your
guys.
put in your request, Billy. Hopefully the devs will listen to this down the road.
Yeah.
What do you want them to target next? What's your request?
I'd probably say Stargate, honestly, like a token like that. I mean, assuming they do the curve tokenomics, if you could control emissions there, because I think that to me is the only outside risk that I see, is that Stargate accumulates all of the stablecoin liquidity, and then if they end up having more transactions rotate through that, because obviously they can have native USDC and all these canonical chains, and so if they're able to do that, maybe they end up with like more cross-chain volume than Curve is able to accumulate on ETH Layer 1. But so I think that could be the only kind of way the Convex could go around that, such that if Curve does lose its moat, because right now Curve's moat is not fees, right? It's the emissions, and maybe somebody comes along that ends up having the opposite, where it's the fees and not the emissions. And so I think in that scenario, Convex would just want to make sure that they're protected. And I see kind of Stargate kind of being the only competitive threat. We obviously have seen Platypus and others try to innovate here, and I think kind of given Curve's push into volatile tokens, their moat's pretty secure.
Excellent. And isn't it great to actually talk about this stuff rather than type or tweet? Go ahead, Billy.
I'm gonna say I'm with you.
I was definitely gonna agree.
Yeah. So the other thing I'll throw out is, we plan to do the Bribecast every 2 weeks, but Alejandro and myself were also going to try to do an interview during those off weeks. So we think we've lined up a few folks. We'll see if it actually happens, or somebody rugs us. But we hope to have those interviews coming on the off weeks with big people in the community. And with Convex really being part of the Curve ecosystem and so many spokes to this wheel, it's going to be a pretty broad base that we're going to be having conversations with folks. Any other thoughts on that, Alejandro?
No, yeah, couple things. So obviously, while we do our interviews, we're going to try to get people in the convex ecosystem and people building on top or innovating. See if we can get any, of course, they give any alpha. See if they can give any of us words because we're not in those circles, so we probably can't spill any alpha. But if we can get Dev or something like that to spill it, then like live on the show, then obviously we'll try to share it with everyone. And one thing that I just wanted to clarify with Billy, actually, I think it's good for everyone to remember that while Curve, yeah, there's always going to be a risk of Curve losing the competition or losing its place in DeFi. But I just want to remind everyone that there's a lot of things that they still need to work on that as soon as they get it done, I think is really going to ramp things up. Like, for example, that I see like they still haven't worked with things with aggregators. So the like aggregators and the most part like have a hard time routing um, so curve pools and like as you probably see on the Discord, everything like every once in a while, like a giant whale gets sandwiched when they could have just gone through curve, for example. And other things along those lines that I think as soon as they can get it up and running, that it would probably help a lot with fees and like strengthen the token in the long term. Is even though things go really fast in crypto, we probably still have to wait a lot, like a bit of time before that comes out though. But I think as soon as it comes out, the fundamentals are just going to get even stronger as we go on.
Awesome. Agree. All right, we're sitting at about an hour right now, folks. Anybody else want to come up real quick? And then we'll probably close it out for this afternoon. Oops. Yeah, afternoon where I am. All right. Well, thank you all for coming to the very first Bribecast. Um, Alex, I'll let you say a few closing words, and then Alejandro. But Alex, appreciate you coming on. Any final words for everybody?
No, I'll just say thank you both so much for starting this podcast. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to follow, given how much is going on within this ecosystem. And I really appreciate y'all bringing me on and coining my new title as the preeminent bribologist. That's something I might need to throw on my LinkedIn.
You should, and you backed it up today. So here, here.
I guess some things I'll say is that thanks for everyone for coming and for the people that sat here from the beginning all the way through. I definitely appreciate it. Um, of course, if you ever want to get in contact, ask us to include a couple questions or recommendations for the show. You can always just send me a DM on Discord or just at me and one of the Discord servers. It doesn't matter what time really, like I'll see it eventually in case you guys or want to give us criticism for the show or anything like that. We'll take it all gladly.
Yeah, any criticisms, send that to Alex, not us. uh,
Yeah, I get plenty of it, so I'm happy to take it.
Hey, again, thank you all for tuning in. This will be pushed out probably tonight. I guess, obviously you can tell we're North America, so we'll be pushing it out that time. And then from there, look forward to doing this again in 2 weeks. So we'll put out another schedule reminder. And then in the in between, our goal is to have another interview come out somewhere around next Sunday, Monday. We put that podcast out. So more to come. Excited about where this takes us. Appreciate y'all spending some time with us. Everybody have a great day. Thank y'all.
Kingmaker Podcast.